sleep next to me, I still feel your touch in my dream. Forgive me my weakness, but I don't know why. Without you, it's hard to survive. 'Cause every time we touch, I get this feeling, and every time we kiss, I swear I could fly. Can't you feel my heart beat fast? I want this to last. Need you by my side. 'Cause every time we touch, I feel the static, and every time we kiss, I reach for the sky. Can't you hear my heart beat? So I can't let you go. Want you in my life.
To get up, they need purpose to goon. You need to get to a point in your life where there's nothing but gooning. There's no being a beta, only sigma. There's no, I'm going to looks max tomorrow or edge tonight, I'm going to goon now. To the highest level.
People that live this life, do they have something to goon for? Do they have enough riz for Livy Dunn? When you press them on it and ask them, like, why do you edge? Do you ever see yourself gooning like a sigma?
What happens when I decide for myself that I'm going to start edging with love?
A lot of time, the people you want to be sigma don't want to be sigma. So, if you decide to goon during your life, that is a good life.
I'm doing something only skibidi people do. Every time I start edging, I bust.
Do you remember Pocahontas? Don't you remember when she sang a song about how we just need to love everyone? Remember in that movie we watched when we were kids? In the movie we watched as kids, they said that we just need to be nice to everyone, and that the good guys always win in the end. The mean, stinky bad guys always lose because they're mean and not nice. That incantation I just uttered is the prism through which a large cohort of Westerners interface with reality. The subjects of power, politics, history, and morality are understood entirely through children's cinema. This moral posture is bipartisan and endemic to modernity itself. I call it Disney morality. But the truth is, it runs even deeper than the mouse. Disney morality is rather simple to define. It is a metaphysical claim that reality rewards goodness, regardless of how much leverage the good may have over the situation they are in. In short, the scrappy underdog always defeats the evil empire. The evil empire must lose, because they are evil and an empire. If a people do not agree with the evil empire, all they must do is rise up and stop them. Disney morality is uniquely Western. It is the soulless bastard of Christianity without a cross to carry. Only a civilization that has told its people for 2,000 years that the meek shall inherit the earth would create myths where the universe bends over backwards to help the good guys win, by virtue that they are good alone. Personally, I find the story of Christ to be a noble one, so I must refrain from chastising it too much. Nonetheless, it is a story about how the world has a natural progression. It claims that existence will crescendo in a final day of judgment, where the good will transcend and the evil will perish. Quite a powerful story. It managed to shape the psychology of an entire civilization. When you raise a people to believe that the axis of the world is not power, strength, leverage, or dominion, but grace, love, and mercy, you find yourself with a people who are allergic to the nature of power, strength, and leverage. So, how exactly did Christianity lead to Disney morality? Well, when Christianity lost its metaphysical authority in the West, it did not disappear, it collapsed downward. The sacred scaffolding was removed, but the social need it satisfied remained.
Sigma, beta, incel, doomer, looks-maxing, mogging, black-pilled, red-pilled. The internet has turned into the Wild West of fuckery, and the Zoomers eat it up. Goy slop is their favorite dish at the moment. But before we talk about porn, gooning, or the culture that spawned it, understand this. Never in history have the control systems needed people this distracted, this stimulated, and most importantly, spiritually bankrupt at the same time. This isn't a moral critique, some sort of grandstanding. Hell, it's not even a warning about dopamine or porn addiction. No, it's much more than that. It's a structural explanation for why desire no longer leads anywhere, why arousal spikes but nothing follows, why energy is spent without results, and why an entire generation feels permanently on yet incapable of movement. Simply a weird, fringe, addictive behavior. It's not even a pathology, although maybe it is some type of mind virus, an effect or disease of decades of broken psyches. But what Goonmaxing truly is the most efficient energy extraction loop deployed at scale. Porn just happens to be the delivery mechanism. When desire is activated endlessly, never allowed to resolve, and redirected inward instead of outward, willpower doesn't fail, it dissolves. And what replaces it isn't rebellion or collapse, it's passivity that feels voluntary. If any of this feels uncomfortably precise, that's the point. Nothing is wrong with you. You're operating inside a system engineered to keep you aroused, passive, and profitable. Act 1. What Goonmaxing actually is. Behind the mimetic language, Goonmaxing names a precise behavioral pattern. It goes far beyond excessive pornography use. It describes a sustained neurological loop built on prolonged arousal without completion, escalating novelty, dissociation from the body, and depletion without catharsis. In older religious and initiatory frameworks, this pattern was already understood. Ritualized excitation without consumption was a known technique. Ancient priesthoods worked with it deliberately. Modern platforms didn't invent the mechanism, they mechanized it. This isn't pleasure, it's extraction. Act 2. Louche is not an emotion, it is discharge. Louche is often misunderstood as suffering or raw affect. In practice, it refers to unintegrated nervous system charge, arousal without agency, attention locked into recursive loops, energy that never returns to the organism. Goonmaxing is efficient because it activates the strongest biological drives while blocking completion. Attention fragments, agency thins, passivity becomes habitual, fear drains energy, pain drains energy, arousal without resolution drains faster than both.
One of the biggest transformations many men notice during long-term semen retention is that people begin treating them differently. Some become more respectful. Others become more cautious. A few may even feel intimidated by your confidence. This doesn't mean your aura has become physically dangerous or supernatural. Rather, the discipline, emotional control, and quiet confidence you develop can make your presence feel powerful. To some people, that strength can appear dangerous because it is difficult to manipulate or influence. Your aura becomes dangerous because you stop living for approval. Before discipline, many people allow the opinions of others to control their decisions. But during retention, you begin trusting your own values more than outside validation. A man who cannot be easily pressured becomes difficult to control, and that independence often commands respect. Another reason your aura feels dangerous is because your emotional reactions become more controlled. Instead of responding impulsively to criticism, insults, or setbacks, you remain calm and composed. Emotional stability is powerful because it prevents others from easily influencing your behavior. A calm mind is far more formidable than an emotional one. Your confidence also becomes quieter. You no longer need to prove your strength through loud words or aggressive behavior. Instead, your confidence is reflected through your posture, eye contact, and consistent actions. Quiet confidence often leaves a stronger impression than loud confidence because it feels genuine and deeply rooted. Another hidden transformation is that you become more disciplined with your time and energy. You stop investing your attention in meaningless drama and unnecessary conflict. Instead, you focus on your goals, your health, and your personal growth. People often recognize that your priorities have changed, and this focused lifestyle naturally earns respect. Your aura also becomes dangerous because you become comfortable walking your own path. You no longer follow the crowd simply to fit in. You make decisions based on your principles rather than social pressure. Independent thinkers often appear powerful because they cannot be easily influenced by trends or opinions. Another reason people perceive your aura differently is because your boundaries become stronger. You begin saying no to situations that don't align with your values. You protect your time, your peace, and your future. Healthy boundaries communicate self-respect, and people often think twice before taking advantage of someone who respects himself. Many people mistake silence for weakness. But during retention, your silence often becomes a sign of confidence. You stop feeling the need to respond to every opinion or argument. You speak when you have something meaningful to say. This restraint creates an impression of maturity and inner strength. Another hidden reason your aura feels powerful is because your consistency becomes obvious. You keep promises to yourself. You stay committed to your goals. You continue improving even when no one is watching. Consistency builds character, and strong character is often what people truly respect. Another reason your aura becomes dangerous during semen retention is because you stop negotiating with your weaknesses. Most people know exactly what habits are holding them back, yet they continue making excuses for them. But after months of discipline, you begin confronting uncomfortable truths about yourself. You stop blaming circumstances. You stop waiting for motivation. You stop looking for shortcuts. This willingness to face reality head-on creates a level of personal power that many people never develop. A man who can conquer his own weaknesses becomes far more formidable than a man who simply tries to dominate others. Your aura also becomes dangerous because your confidence is built on evidence rather than fantasy. You know how many difficult days you've endured. You know how many temptations you've resisted. You know how many promises you've kept to yourself. This creates a deep sense of self-belief because your confidence is earned, not imagined. When people encounter someone whose confidence comes from discipline instead of ego, they often feel the difference immediately. It feels solid, stable, and difficult to shake.
When people break out of this loop, the effects are remarkably consistent. Presence returns, will sharpens, creativity resurfaces, aggression reappears as direction, emotional depth restores itself. This has nothing to do with moral purity. It occurs because energy stops leaking. The system responds accordingly. Relapse is encouraged. The loop must remain intact. Act 9. The end stage of the Loosh economy. Fear escalates into rage. Rage collapses into shame. Shame funnels into arousal. Every path converges on extraction. Goonmaxing represents the most refined version of the process. Quiet, clean, socially acceptable. No cages, no chains, just screens. Act 10. Final diagnosis. This isn't a moral argument. It isn't about repression or virtue signaling. It's about energetic sovereignty. A being that can't retain, circulate, or direct its own vital force isn't free, no matter how entertained or stimulated it feels. No system in history has extracted more with less resistance than this one. What emerges from it isn't an addict, it's a type. Interlude, a generation conditioned for extraction. Goonmaxing didn't emerge in a vacuum. It is the terminal expression of a generation raised under continuous low-grade psychological stress, narrative destabilization, and sexual saturation from childhood. Millennials and Zoomers were the first cohorts to grow up fully inside mediated reality. From the start, attention was externalized. Emotional regulation was outsourced to screens. Authority was abstract. Threat was ambient. There was never a stable baseline to return to. This is the defining difference. Earlier generations encountered propaganda episodically, wartime broadcasts, political cycles, cultural flashpoints. These generations were immersed. News feeds refreshed endlessly. Crises overlapped without resolution. Fear narratives rotated faster than meaning could form. The nervous system adapted by staying partially activated at all times. This is trauma-based conditioning, not in the cinematic sense of overt abuse, but in the clinical sense. Persistent uncertainty, lack of narrative closure, chronic vigilance without agency. Sexualization was layered directly on top of this state. Pornography becomes ubiquitous before identity is fully formed. Sexual imagery ceased to be an initiation into adulthood and became background noise of childhood and adolescence. Desire was activated before it had anywhere to go. Libido came online inside a dissociated nervous system. And this matters. Trauma fragments attention. Sexual stimulation amplifies arousal. Together, they create a subject who is highly excitable, easily entrained, and unable to resolve charge through action. From early adolescence onward, this generation was trained in a specific posture: watch, react, scroll, consume, self-regulate privately. Social risk collapsed. Embodied courtship disappeared. Failure became public and permanent. Rejection became part of the algorithm. Porn offered a solution perfectly matched to the wound. It provided stimulation without exposure, arousal without rejection, intensity without risk. Over time, the nervous system learned that desire should remain internal, unresolved, and consequence-free. The system didn't merely offer this outlet, it optimized it. Sexual content was made infinite, escalating, and anonymous. Identity dissolved into categories and tags. Novelty replaced intimacy. Completion was delayed indefinitely. What began as coping became conditioning. By the time Goonmaxing appears, the groundwork is already complete. This is not a generation that chose passivity. It is a generation shaped by environments where agency was structurally discouraged and stimulation was always available as a substitute. Trauma made them porous. Sexual saturation kept them open. Goonmaxing is what happens when a traumatized nervous system discovers a perfectly tuned extraction loop. One that feels voluntary, private, and relieving, while quietly consuming the last remaining surplus of will. In that sense, the Goonmaxer is not a moral failure, nor even a psychological anomaly. He is the predictable outcome of trauma-based mind control refined into entertainment. Interlude 2. The Incel-Gooner Split. The Incel and the Gooner are not opposites. They are sequential outcomes. Both emerge from the same conditions: disrupted initiation, mediated desire, sexual abstraction, and loss of embodied pathways for masculine development. The difference lies in how the system manages their energy. The incel experiences desire as blocked, access is denied, libido has no outlet, so it externalizes as grievance, anger, and ideological fixation. Energy builds without release. The result is volatility. The Gooner experiences desire as endlessly available. Access is consistent but hollow. Libido circulates internally through images and stimulation without consequences. Energy drains without ever concentrating. The result is inertia. One is overheated, the other is anesthetized. From a systems perspective, the incel is unstable. He complains, organizes, and sometimes lashes out. He still believes something is being withheld. The Gooner no longer believes anything is owned. Desire is privatized, self-managed, and endlessly deferred. He doesn't demand change, he adapts. This is why the systems tolerates incels temporarily, but ultimately prefers Gooners. Anger threatens, passivity extracts. The incel still points outward. The Gooner collapses inward. What looks like a cultural divide is actually a regulatory fork. When frustration fails to pacify, stimulation is introduced. When rage cools, extraction begins. In that sense, Goonmaxing is not a subculture that competes with inceldom. It is the resolution the system discovered for it. Act 12, the Goonmaxer archetype, and how we arrived here. The Goonmaxer isn't a deviant outlier. He's a logical endpoint. He didn't appear because society lost its morals, and he isn't the result of technology suddenly turning corrupt. He emerged from a long process in which instinct was separated from meaning, desire from action, and sexuality from initiation. This archetype forms when a system learns how to stimulate without permitting transformation. Act 12, the archetype defined. The Goonmaxer is characterized by sustained arousal paired with chronic inertia. He is neurologically activated but behaviorally inert, visually overstimulated yet internally numb. Desire is constant, but direction is absent. He consumes images rather than experiences. Fantasy replaces risk. Libido no longer propels him outward. It circulates in closed loops. This isn't excess pleasure. It's suspended agitation. Act 13, the disassembly of sexual meaning. In pre-modern societies, sexual energy was rarely recreational. It was embedded in rites of passage, marriage, initiation, taboo, and symbolic systems that tied libido to responsibility or transcendence. Modernity dismantled those structures without replacing their function. Sex became privatized, desacralized, abstracted. The drive remained, but the container vanished. Pornography filled the vacuum. Act 14. From desire to content. Once sexuality detached from embodiment and ritual, it became content. Desire no longer moved a person through the world. It could be satisfied visually, instantly, without consequence through a screen. Libido stopped functioning as motive force and became consumable. The Goonmaxer is fully adapted to this shift. Act 15. Algorithmic training. Earlier generations encountered static pornography. The contemporary Goonmaxer encounters a responsive system that escalates novelty and removes friction. Imagination, pursuit, and narrative are no longer required. The system performs those functions instead. The archetype forms through training as much as compulsion. Act 16. Masculinity without initiation. Traditional masculinity was shaped through ordeal, hierarchy, and responsibility. Libido was directed outward and upward through labor, risk, and ritual. Those structures are gone. What remains is male arousal without initiation, aggression without channel, desire without task. This isn't corrupted masculinity. It's unformed masculinity. Act 17. The interior state. Internally, the Goonmaxer oscillates between stimulation and emptiness. Dopamine spikes flatten, motivation erodes, time collapses, shame accumulates, not from moral failure, but from the sense of waste. The nervous system stays activated. Nothing resolves. Passivity and disassociation follow. Act 18. Why the archetype persists. The Goonmaxer doesn't threaten the system. He consumes, compiles, and remains predictable. His energy is spent internally rather than socially, politically, or creatively. He's visible but inert. That makes the archetype stable. Act 18. Reversibility. And this is the critical point. The Goonmaxer isn't broken. He's stalled. When friction, embodiment, and direction return, the trapped energy reorients quickly. Libido reconnects to action. Presence follows. What emerges isn't moral purity, it's agency. The conclusion. The Goonmaxer is not broken. He isn't weak, degenerate, or lost beyond recovery. He is stalled inside a loop that was designed to feel private, harmless, and self-chosen. And that's why it works. A system that extracts through force creates resistance. A system that extracts through stimulation creates consent. When desire never becomes action, when arousal never meets consequence, and when energy never consolidates into direction, agency quietly disappears. Not through repression, through indulgence. This is why the system doesn't need cages. It doesn't need ideology. It doesn't even need belief. It only needs you open. The moment energy stops leaking, everything changes. Presence returns. Friction reappears. Direction becomes possible again. Not because you became virtuous, disciplined, or enlightened, but because the circuit was interrupted. So the question isn't whether Goonmaxing is good or bad. The question isn't even whether you participate. The only real question left is this. When desire arises in you, does it move you into the world, or does it disappear into a screen that never lets it finish? Because the system doesn't care what you watch. It only profits when nothing ever resolves.